How y'all doing?
Good.
How many of you guys are baseball fans?
Phillies.
Phillies. You know, I like to keep up with my current events. Apparently, Obama won.
Go K! McKay!
The World Series.
Yeah!
2 million people went into downtown Philadelphia to watch a bunch of people on a float. Woo!
Yeah.
How many of you guys were there? Okay. Don't hold this against me, but I'm from Chicago.
We still love you.
It's something I can't help, but my whole family is from Chicago. And we are incredible sports fans. Cubs, Bears, Bulls, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
You know, my brother, my parents live in Lancaster. Everybody else in my family lives in Chicago. My brother has season tickets to Notre Dame. My brother lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He has season tickets to see Notre Dame play at Notre Dame. My aunt and uncle have season tickets to see the Chicago Bears play. We're obsessed with these teams, right? So this summer, I drove out to Chicago with my dad. And we're watching a baseball game with my grandfather. And my grandfather is 87. And for those of you who don't know, the Chicago Cubs haven't won a World Series since 1908. That's 100 year. My grandfather is 87 and he has never seen his team win the World Series. So we're watching these games and he's sitting on the couch being like, "What are you doing to me? Do you want me to die?" And I'm just sitting there laughing at him because I think it's the funniest thing in the world. But before I left, he actually gave me this hat. We had a long talk about how old he is and putting him in a retirement home. That was kind of sad. But before I left, he gave me this hat, and I always remember the funny things that he says, like, "Sammy Sosa, I don't care how much other people like you, I hate you." And then he hits a home run, and he's like, "Okay, we're all right. We can still win this. We're okay." And that's my grandfather. Now, when the Chicago Cubs got into the playoffs, my family lost it. Okay, we were looking at plane tickets. We were seeing how much it would cost to go out there. So we're like, let's wait. Let's see how they do in the playoffs. So we're in the living room of my parents' house watching this game. And all of a sudden, my dad just starts screaming at the television, "What are you doing?" And before he finishes, my brothers chime in with, "Are you trying to kill me?" So I'm sitting in the chair laughing. And I've never been scolded so much in my entire life. I was reprimanded. "You are a disgrace to this family. Get out of this room." They literally picked me up and took me out of the room. It was that bad. They were so mad at me. But I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world to see how much my brothers were like my dad. And how much my dad was like my grandfather. I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. That they got upset over the exact same stuff. You know, last week, Mike talked about Jesus calming the storm, that Jesus is the Son of God, so he could calm the storm. Well, this week, I'm going to read from John chapter 1. Now, for those of you who don't know, John was Jesus' best friend. And he wrote down stuff that they had gone through together in this book. So John chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. It's like, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning." And a little bit farther down it says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." You know, last week Mike talked about Jesus calming the storm, and the week before that, Kev talked about feeding 5,000 people. You know, God calmed the storm, and God fed 5,000 people. God did that through Jesus, because Jesus is like his Father. God, just like my brothers are like my dad, and my dad is like my grandfather, Jesus is exactly like his Father. And later on, it talks, Paul actually wrote a letter to the people. They were Colossians, which is a nation in the Middle East. And describing Jesus, he said to them, "He is the image of the invisible God, And later he says, he's the fullness of God that lives in bodily form. So it's just talking about God coming down to earth. God made the world. And then God came down into it through a man. And that seems really hard to believe. It kind of seems like a fairy tale. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And a lot of time thinking about the life that I lived. So the closing thought that I just want to leave with you guys is, what does it mean that God came down to earth? That God put on skin and moved into the neighborhood? That he lived a life just like all of us led. So I'm just going to pray quick, and then we'll go over to Venice Pizza. Lord, I thank you for tonight, that we could just have fun in this small room. And Lord, I pray that you would be with us all, especially over this weekend as most of us are going up to Lake Champion. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So what'd you guys say?